Hey horror lovers, today I have something truly unusual for you. A story that got under my skin and stayed there. It's a long one, but trust me, every second is worth it. Like and subscribe so you never miss a story like this. Now get comfortable, turn the lights down, and enjoy. Have you ever had a job that felt wrong? Not just the regular kind of wrong, where you drag yourself out of bed, muttering about your paycheck or your boss, but the kind that seeps into your very bones, the kind that makes your skin itch, and something deep inside whispers, "You don't belong here." That's the job I have. I work alone, lighthouse keeper at a place called Black Ridge Point. You've probably never heard of it, and honestly, that's for the best. It doesn't appear on any popular map. Tourists don't wander here. Even the locals pretend it doesn't exist. And you know what? They're right. Because Black Ridge Point feels like it shouldn't exist. Like the earth regretted letting it come into being. A lighthouse is supposed to help ships to shine so they don't shatter against the rocks or get lost at sea. That's what I thought when I took the job. I thought I'd be doing something good, something useful, maybe even noble. But here at this lighthouse, the light doesn't guide anyone. It locks something in, keeps it contained. The beam isn't an invitation, it's a warning. And tonight is different from all the others. Tonight I found something I wasn't supposed to find. I wasn't looking for anything unusual when I stumbled upon it. Just another night shift, one of hundreds I've spent in this cold, salt-eaten tower that groans with every gust of wind. After 2 years, you'd think I'd be used to everything, but this place always holds something in reserve, just until it seems like you're finally safe. That night, I decided to clean out the storage room, just to break the endless silence. The room was crammed with old, forgotten junk. Cracked lanterns, rusted tools, thick manuals no one had opened in decades. It smelled of mold, old wood, and something else. Something acrid that scratched at the back of my throat. I was moving a stack of old logbooks kept by previous workers when I saw it. A brittle sheet of yellowed paper, wedged between the back wall and a shelf. I pulled it out. The paper crinkled under my fingers. No title, no signature. Just 7 rules, scrawled in a shaky hand, as if whoever wrote them hadn't slept in weeks. And these rules, they didn't feel like something someone made up for fun. They felt real, hard-won. Lock the door at exactly 11 p.m. If you hear knocking after that, do not open it. Whatever you'd want to see standing there won't knock. That was the first line. Simple, but it sent chills down my spine. The light must burn at all times. If it flickers, you must restore it immediately. Even if that means going outside, my stomach dropped. I'd done that before. Gone outside during storms when the power cut out. I thought that was normal. Part of the maintenance. Just part of the job. After midnight, do not look at the water. If you hear someone calling your name, they are lying. If the water tries to speak to you, shut your mouth and don't answer. I couldn't breathe. I remembered a night when I thought I heard someone screaming from the rocks below. I'd almost called back. If you see a figure standing at the edge of the cliff, do not acknowledge its presence. Do not speak. Do not approach. Cold sweat broke out across my back. I had seen something like that. Just once a few weeks ago, I told myself it was a trick of the light.
You must leave at exactly 4 in the morning. Not a minute early, not a minute late.
I always left around 4, but never at exactly 4. I didn't know it mattered. Maybe it does. When a heavy fog rolls in, do not look out the window. You may see something you don't want to see. I thought of the nights when the fog was so thick, I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. I used to stare out the window just to feel less alone. On the night of the new moon, a ship will return. Do not acknowledge it. Do not try to stop it. Do not look. That last rule hit me the hardest. I hadn't seen any ship. But tonight the sky held only a thin crescent moon. The new moon was approaching. I stood there staring at the list. My hands trembled slightly, gripping the edges of the paper. The air around me seemed to thicken, as if the room itself was holding its breath. At first I laughed, a weak, shaky laugh. I thought maybe it was just an old prank from a previous keeper, some kind of creepy tradition to mess with the new guy. But the longer I held that paper, the louder the silence became, as if the entire lighthouse was watching me. And somewhere deep down, I understood something. This wasn't just a warning left behind, it was a challenge, a test. And without even knowing it, I'd already been following some of the rules. I was already playing this game, whether I liked it or not. I tried to distract myself, I really did. I paced the main floor of the lighthouse, picked up a dusty book from the side table, flipped through the pages without seeing a single word. I even switched on the little battery-powered radio, hoping to catch some fuzzy station from the mainland. But all I got was static, and the whole time, my hands wouldn't stop shaking, trembling like I'd been out in the cold too long. But the thick stone walls kept the wind out. It wasn't the cold, it was fear, cold, quiet, creeping fear. The first rule seemed simple when I read it. Lock the door at exactly 11 p.m. Easy, right? Just turn the key and walk away. So that's what I did. I walked to the heavy iron door at the base of the spiral staircase and turned the lock. Then again, just to be sure. The metal groaned in protest, as if it didn't want to be locked. That should have been my first clue. And then, at exactly 11:03, I heard it. Knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Then silence. The kind of silence that presses on your ears, waiting to see what you'll do. I froze, eyes wide. I hadn't expected it to actually happen. I couldn't even remember hearing knocking before that night. But now that I was really listening, really paying attention, something clicked. I had heard it before. Maybe unconsciously, buried deep in my mind like a memory that wasn't mine. And then it hit me. This had been happening every single night. I just hadn't noticed. Or maybe I hadn't wanted to. I stepped back from the door. The lighthouse sat on a cliff. No one could just walk up here. There was a narrow path from the shore, and the rocks below were sharp and merciless. You'd hear someone coming up that path. Their footsteps would echo, but tonight I'd heard nothing. And then, "Hey!" The voice hit me like a slap. Male, low, slightly rough, like it hadn't been used in a long time. But something about it was wrong, like a song performed by someone who knows all the words but doesn't understand what they mean. Too even, too careful. "I think I'm lost," the voice said. I didn't move. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I stared at the door as if it might reach out and grab me. Lost? Here? At night? That made no sense. I was certain that voice had no business being in this place. "Please,"
It said again, softer this time, trying to sound weak. I don't have much time. You have to let me in.
I almost moved toward the door. Something in me lurched. Reflex. Instinct. That old human compulsion to help someone in need. But then my gaze fell on the piece of paper I'd tucked into my jacket pocket. Rule number 1. Don't open the door. My fingers tightened on the fabric of my jacket. I stepped back. The voice kept going. Pleading, begging, insisting. Each word more convincing than the last. It tried to sound frightened, then kind, then angry. But I stood still, kept my mouth shut. Then, without warning, the voice simply went quiet. Silence. Not a single breath. And then came footsteps. But not the kind that echo on a stone path. These were different. No crunch of gravel, no rustle through bushes, just a soft, even rhythm. As if feet were stepping through empty air. They didn't head back down the path. They didn't fade into the trees, they just left. Into the pitch-black night that stretched beyond the lighthouse like an endless sea of nothingness. I wasn't breathing. Then something slid under the door. A quiet, scraping sound. Paper on stone. I stared at the gap beneath the door. A sheet of paper. Blood-stained. Not just smudged. Soaked. Dark, rust-brown stains. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over it, not daring to touch. It could be a trick, a trap. But leaving it there felt worse. So carefully I picked it up. The edges were sticky, the smell metallic, sharp, nauseating. I slowly unfolded it. There were words. Trembling handwritten lines like the rules, but smaller, harder to read. I started reading, but I didn't get far. Because in that exact moment, my eyes landed on the second line. The light flickered. Not gently, not gradually. A sharp, violent blink. On, off, on. And for the first time that night, I realized I wasn't alone. When I glanced at the clock, it read exactly midnight. The moment my eyes registered the time, the lighthouse beam, my only real protection against whatever horrors Black Ridge Point concealed, flickered again. Sharp. Once, then again. Once, twice, and then darkness. The beam that usually swept steadily across the black ocean simply vanished. Gone. Just like that. No warning. No hum of dying power. It just went out. And in that instant, something deep inside me understood. This wasn't just a malfunction. This wasn't normal. Rule number 2. I remembered it clearly now. The light must burn at all times. If it flickers, you must restore it immediately, even if that means going outside. An icy bolt of panic shot through my chest. My throat closed. My heart hammered so fast, it felt like it might crack my ribs. I grabbed the flashlight from the nearest table, snatched it with trembling hands, and bolted for the stairs. The old spiral steps groaned beneath me as I raced up toward the lantern room. Cold hit me halfway up. Wrong cold. Not just the chill of sea air. Wrong in a deeper way. By the time I reached the top, I could see my own breath. thick white clouds pouring from my mouth like smoke from a fire. My fingers had already gone numb. The metal railing burned my skin like ice. And then the light above me dimmed to a faint glow and went out. Complete, absolute darkness. I clicked on the flashlight. A weak yellow beam, like a knife cutting through the room. Trembling with my hand, I aimed it at the generator. My heart pounded, each beat louder than the wind outside. I flipped the main switch. Nothing. No spark, no hum. Nothing. My breath caught. I moved to the backup generator. Hope clung to me like a lifeline. But something stopped me. Not a sound, not a touch, just a feeling. That same creeping feeling that tightens your skin. The feeling of being watched, of someone being there. And then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it. Something was standing outside, motionless, right at the edge of the cliff, where the light never reached. It wasn't a person. It looked like a person if you squinted from a distance and had never actually seen a human being before. The outline, the shape. But something was wrong. Too tall, too thin. The arms hung in a way that turned my stomach. And where a face should have been, just a blurring smear of swirling darkness. No eyes, no mouth. Just a suggestion of a head, rotating like smoke trapped in a jar. It wasn't moving, just standing there, watching me. Or maybe watching the lighthouse. Either way, the message was clear. The light was out, and it was waiting. I turned back to the generator, my hands barely working from the cold. They slipped off the handles once, twice before I managed to grip the ignition switch. I glanced back over my shoulder. The figure took a step forward. Panic consumed me. I slammed my palm against the ignition. Come on, come on, come on. With a thunderous roar, the generator coughed, sputtered, and finally screamed to life. The light above me exploded back on. Not flickered. Blazed. It pierced the foggy night like a sword of fire. The entire room flooded with warm, blinding brightness. I spun around and looked at the cliff. My throat knotted. Gone. The figure was gone. No trace, no footprint, no whisper on the wind. Just the night. And that cursed, endless sea. What? I whispered, as if saying it out loud would make it real. What was that? My heart hammered in my chest, loud and uneven, like a drum sounding an alarm. My thoughts spun in circles, refusing to settle. Every passing second made the silence heavier, as if it were pressing down on my lungs. I tried to distract myself, moving clumsily from one unfinished task to another. Checking oil levels, adjusting the beam, wiping surfaces that were already clean. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. But no matter what I did, the sharp edge of unease only sharpened. People don't become lighthouse keepers for fun. Nobody dreams of spending months in isolation in a cold, creaking tower by the sea, cut off from the world. You don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I want to be alone with foghorns and sea spray." No. You end up here because you're running, hiding, escaping. My reason was simple. I had nothing left, nothing to hold on to, nothing keeping me in the world I used to call home. I grew up in a small, quiet town on the edge of a reservation, the kind of place where stories hung in the air and people still nodded at the invisible. My grandfather was a proud, weathered old man who had survived too much and said too little. He'd sit by the fire and tell us stories that felt less like fairy tales and more like warnings. He spoke of spirits that didn't stay dead, of voices calling from the water, and a fog that carried something more than just moisture. As a boy, I brushed it all off. I thought it was just part of our culture, a way to keep children in line. But then came the accident. My wife, my little son, gone. One rainy night, a slick highway, and then nothing. After that, everything my grandfather had said felt less like myth and more like memory. All I wanted was to disappear, to stop hearing the echo of toys no longer played with, to stop seeing her mug in the cabinet and his shoes by the door. I needed silence, distance, emptiness. So when the job at Black Ridge Lighthouse came up, I took it without a second thought. The pay was good, the demands were few, and best of all, no one asked questions. But now I'm starting to wonder, did I choose this place or did it choose me? I tried to push those thoughts away, told myself I was just tired. That grief does strange things to the mind. I sat down again with a cup of coffee, the mug trembling in my hand. Then the old floor clock struck midnight, and I heard it. A voice I almost called back out of habit. But the hair on my arm stood on end. The voice was outside, near the water, and it called my name, clearly, softly, familiarly. My whole body went rigid, my mouth went dry. Rule number 3 from the Black Ridge Keeper's Guide. After midnight, do not look at the water. I used to joke about the rules when I first arrived, laughed at them like some weird hazing ritual for new keepers. But I'd followed them. Always. Until now, because that voice wasn't just any voice. It was my mother's voice. And she's been gone for 10 years. No, I whispered. But even as I said it, my feet were already moving, as if they didn't care about the rules, as if they belonged to someone else. I walked to the small round window, the one that gave a perfect view of the sea. I didn't even realize I was crying until the salt from my tears burned the corners of my mouth. Come here, please. I need you. That voice, it was her. The gentle way she called my name when dinner was ready. The way she used to soothe me when I cried after nightmares. My hands gripped the windowsill, my knees locked. My brain screamed, "Don't." But my heart whispered, "What if?" Then I saw something. That the water wasn't calm, it was moving, almost convulsing as if in a panic. It wasn't parting to let something through. It was recoiling. The water churned and swirled and retreated in slow, reluctant waves, as if it wanted nothing to do with what was rising beneath it. I couldn't breathe, because it was starting to take shape. Not a man, not a woman, not any creature I had ever seen or read about. The shape was alive, wrong, impossible. It had no place in this world. No, what the hell is that? I whispered, my voice cracking. And for the first time in my life, I understood that water, the very thing we need to exist, the thing that brings life and peace and calm, can be terrifying. My survival instincts fired hard and fast. My eyes slammed shut without my permission. And then came a sound. Scraping directly on the glass. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails, one by one. I froze, didn't breathe. The only thing I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. Then silence. No voice, no whisper. When I dared open my eyes, the window was fogged with thick condensation, and written on the glass, clear as day, "Don't break the rules." By that point, I was shattered, completely hollowed out, inside and out. My nerves felt like stripped wires, sparking at every sound. My fingers wouldn't stop trembling even when I clenched them into fists. There was a heaviness in my chest, something dense and settled, refusing to move. I kept telling myself that if I could just make it to morning, everything would be all right. That maybe all of this would feel like a dream, a terrible, twisted dream. I just needed to hold on. But my body had stopped believing my thoughts. I don't even remember how the hours passed after what happened at the window. One moment it was just past midnight, then nearly 4. My mind stopped tracking time, as if it knew it didn't want to be awake for what came next. At 3:45, the world changed again. It started with a smell, wet and heavy, like rotting seaweed and damp rope. Then came the fog, thick, impossibly thick, rolling in as if it had its own mind, wrapping the lighthouse in heavy blankets, choking the light. I could barely see the edge of my own table. This wasn't the kind of fog that just blocks your view. It swallowed sound too. Everything became muffled, hushed. I was trying not to look up, I really was. I stared at the floor, blinked rapidly, focused on the beat of my own heart. But then I heard it, wood. Old cracking wood under pressure. Then another sound, metallic, low and hollow, rolling out in the distance like a bell swung by an invisible hand. A ship's bell. I held my breath, carefully, like a child hiding under a blanket. I turned my head, just enough to look out the window again. The fog was so thick I thought I'd see nothing, but then, faintly, like a memory surfacing from a deep sleep, I saw it. A ship, barely visible, like a shadow in the mist. It was gliding across the surface of the ocean, too smoothly, too silently. No spray, no waves around the hull. It didn't disturb the water at all. It just moved, soundlessly, as if it weren't part of the world we know. Its sails were torn, fluttering softly like old cloth left to rot. The ship's wood was cracked and bleached, and yet it held together, as if stubbornly refusing to sink. It was wrong. This ship didn't belong to this time. Maybe to no time at all. And then I saw the figures. They stood along the deck, still, watching. They looked like people, but not quite. Not anymore. Some had no hands. One had no face. Just smooth, pale skin, stretched where features should have been. Several stood with their mouths open, wide and empty, their jaws dropped in endless screams. but none of them made a sound.